joining me. I'm Tom Laux, Communications Director for the City of Marshfield. And we're doing election stuff coverage here over the next month in October. And again, we thank you for joining me. And today in the studio, I have Brian Giles. And he's running for the 69th Assembly against Donna Rosar. And Donna is a Republican and Brian is a Democrat. And we're going to get to know him a bit better. So if you have not voted yet, this is your chance to watch, learn about the candidates. And Brian's going to tell us about himself here shortly. And we'll get to know him a little bit better, his family and where he's from. And then some of the things that he wants to talk about regarding why he wants to run in the place of Bob Culp for the 69th Assembly District position here for the state of Wisconsin. Well, again, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me today, Tom.
Yes, definitely. And we'll try to work with these masks the best I can. There are times I don't wear them, but we'd just like to do that on the request of anybody else. So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Maybe your career, what you do now in the job, I don't know if you're married or family?
Sure, Tom. Well, I've lived here most of my life. I was born and raised here with my wife. We've raised our 3 boys here. They are 21, 20, and 18. I have worked in Marshfield most of my life as well. I spent 9 years working at Midstate Truck in parts sales. I actually left that position to go work for a presidential campaign at the beginning of the year. That job didn't work out the way it was supposed to, which is, it's kind of a good thing. It maybe kind of led me to having the opportunity to run. But yeah, I've been involved with local Democratic politics for quite a while, mostly volunteering for local campaigns, some national campaigns as well. And when the seat became open, and it took a little bit of leg pulling, but I eventually decided to get in the race, and here we are today.
All right. Well, thanks for coming by the studio and sharing information about yourself. I think it really definitely helps to educate the voter out there that is not aware of what is out there and what the candidates are about. And I think that's really important because you would fill, if you get this seat, and it would be a 2-year position, I believe.
Correct.
And it's an important position. It does a lot here regarding our laws within the state. So let's talk about gerrymandering. That is kind of a topic that's been going on for quite some time. But our boundaries have changed over the years. Well, talk about your stance on partisan gerrymandering.
Well, I'm a big believer that we definitely need a change. I signed the Fair Maps Pledge, which states that basically neither political party should have an advantage over the other geographically, especially when it affects the people and basically their vote. And I know the governor has drawn up his map commission, which is a bipartisan one, which I hope does go through. If not, if I'm elected, I will definitely push for some sort of end to the gerrymandering. I mean, you look at my district here in Marshfield, I have neighbors 2 blocks away who can't vote for me, and yet you can go up to Owen and so it's really something that needs to change, and that's why I wanted to look at it, doing it fairly, so it, like I said, doesn't benefit one party over the other at the expense of voters.
All right. Let's switch gears into broadband. And with COVID, we know it's very, very important to get into the rural areas, especially for those school children that might not have internet access and they're still trying to do virtual. Without internet, you can't really do virtual very easily unless you borrow something from them, and then it may and may not work. Mm-hmm. How would you, if you are elected, to keep it affordable or even get it into those areas?
I think you have to put some pressure on the internet companies. I know a lot of times the way they make broadband available is by customer base, but a lot of times it's like maybe they're taking into account a family like as one person, when I think you have to maybe look at them and count how many people are actually in that family, just to get the number up to make it more fair. Because like you said, with COVID, it's a huge issue, and especially with the spikes we're going through now, it's going to continue to be an issue for kids, and they shouldn't have to be driving to McDonald's and sit in the parking lot to be able to finish their homework. So.
Yeah, we've heard of those cases through the news, and it's probably not going to go away. And I think it's kind of even if COVID does leave, which we hope it does soon, but I think your virtual is going to stay in some areas of snow days. Mm-hmm. So and ultimately broadband is where it's going, and so I guess what you're saying is you're hoping would help provide that to those
exactly, and not just students. I mean, I think you're going to really notice a lot of employees going and staying virtual now too, as they found that productivity is just as good, or if not better in some cases, when workers are at home, and they're going to need that improved broadband as well. So
yeah, definitely, it's kind of opened that Pandora's box, as we say, and I think it's definitely going to change the way we work. So that may be it could be a positive piece in that area, that the companies are able to save some money in that area, but time will tell and see where we're at. All right, well, let's talk about taxes. That word taxes, no one ever likes, and who wants to pay more taxes? Really nobody. But what do you do for the average working class person? Is there anything in your position, if you get elected into that you can do to maybe help keep them the same or lower them, or is that not even possible as being a representative?
I definitely know we want to look at the very least, not raising taxes. I mean, we have some quite high property taxes right now. I think you have to look at maybe adding a little more on the sales tax. I know I was talking to someone a few months ago that pointed out to me, we have in Wisconsin, we have a high tax on alcohol, we have a high tax on tobacco, but we really don't have that kind of high tax on vaping products. So I think if we up the taxes on vaping products like we have similar to tobacco, that will bring some lowering of the taxes, or at least keeping our tax rate where it is. I think we need to maybe get a little creative. One of my stances is to decriminalize marijuana, low-level drug offenses. I think if you look at the amount of money our prisons, our jails are spending housing and feeding, low-level drug offenders, obviously nonviolent, that if we decriminalized, we would, release people back into society who really deserve, the second chance, and plus, it'll save us, countless tens of thousands of dollars, which again should help alleviate, that need to raise taxes or the budget shortfall we're going to be looking at due to COVID and some other things.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about healthcare. Healthcare is been a major issue for expense, I shall say, in over 20 years, easily, maybe longer. But it seems that it gets more every year. It costs more for the employer, it costs more for the individual. Is there anything that you can do to help with alleviate or make those costs more even for the general medium, middle class person?
I think, in previous years there has been talks of expanding, Medicare, and I think there's a extreme need to lower drug prices, prescription drug prices as well. What I can do about it, I guess I'm hoping more gets done at the federal level, and it'll make its way down to us. But yeah, I know I read somewhere where we lost, countless tens of thousands of dollars because we didn't expand Badger Care at one point when we had a chance to. So I think we definitely need to look into expanding Medicare here in Wisconsin.
All right. Well, thank you for that response. We're sitting here with Brian Giles. He's a candidate for the 69th Assembly. Donna Rosard is competing against Brian here. And that is for the general election coming up here in November. It's less than a month away already. It's going fast. And we have more questions here to go over with Brian. So why don't we just switch gears into education? That's always a big thing here. It's expensive to run a school, we know that, and there are referendums going all around, and there's actually one here in Marshfield for over $3 million. But let's talk also about secondary school, or I should say college. It's expensive to go, and you're hearing a lot of these things, pay your education, not pay your education. Is there anything that you could do to help a student after high school with the cost of college so they're not in debt before they get a job?
Yeah, I think that's a really important something to really address. I know there's been talk about free college, and I'm not 100% on board necessarily free college for everyone. I think we need to look into maybe what free college, free in-state college would be good. And again, there's also talk of depending on what the parents are making per year, and I think that needs to be looked into too. But I would like to see free in-state college in the future, because when kids get out with that kind of debt, they're paying off for some of them for half their life yet. So, but and mentioning the referendum that we have too, that's something that I feel is important, and I've been in support of that, because I do support our public education, both from kindergarten on up to our UW systems.
Well, Brian, let's talk about transportation in our area. We know that's really important. Everything from our highways to our railroads. What can you would do? Is it worth expanding that area or changing what we're doing in transportation if you were elected?
Sure. I know in the past there's been a lot of talk about expanding a high-speed rail system, and I think that is definitely something worth looking into. It'll cut down on emissions from vehicles, as well. It'll cut down on the wear and tear that our highways and roads go through, and that we all feel as we're driving to work every morning. So I think it's definitely a worthwhile thing to look into, and hopefully doing that would affect us all positively in other ways.
Well, this area is very heavy in dairy farming, and you grew up here, is that correct?
Yes.
So you've seen the changes around the area, not typically right in the city, and we don't have dairy farms except Weber's pretty close over here, so it's just kind of neat to see. But is there anything that you can, in your district area, that if you win, that you can help these dairy farmers succeed?
Well, I think right now an important thing is to make sure that these farmers that are really, especially feeling the pinch with COVID, are getting that money that they need. I know there's a lot of money going out to businesses, but I'm just afraid a lot of it was going to businesses that don't need it. I've seen articles of millionaires and huge companies getting these benefits, and it really should be directed to our small businesses and to our farmers who are really feeling a pinch. So initially right now, until we get this COVID situation figured out and handled, I think we need to make sure that the farmers are getting those benefits from the COVID relief.
Okay. Let's talk about local municipalities such as Marshfield, Village of Spencer, even the little ones all the way down to maybe the villages that are 20 to 100 people. What would you do to maybe help with state aid? Is there anything you can do? You hear so much getting cut to the local municipalities or changes, and they're not able to function because they're looking at taxes. Well, people, could be changing, or people aren't living there and they lose their tax base, and then you can't provide the services. But they do use state aid to help their budgets. Is there anything in the state, if you were to do that, help with any in your district or vote that way statewide?
Well, I think that's definitely an issue that we've had here. A lot of times when you have it's I just came out with I did some radio ads recently, and one of the things I really wanted to stress is that a lot of times politicians are voting what benefits their party and not what benefits their people. And I think a lot of times, that's what we're kind of running into now. So I think if you elect someone who's more open to helping everyone, it's gonna trickle down, and it's gonna your voting will show for these smaller municipalities as well, and not just what benefits your party.
All right. Well, unfortunately, coronavirus is still here. We all hoped it was gone within months last spring, but it didn't happen. Do you think the state is doing a good job right now?
It's funny. I think a lot of people look and they say, well, how did we avoid it? That the first time when all these other places were getting hit hard and we weren't. And I think a big reason is we had a later spring break than a lot of other states. So a lot of other states were knee-deep in their spring break when the COVID was really hitting them hard. They were out traveling, spreading it around a lot easier in a community. Whereas, our district here, it was before our spring break that really hit here, and most people were forced to cancel their spring breaks. There wasn't that kind of travel. There wasn't, they cut back schooling and went to the virtual, and I think that's how we avoided the first time. But now it's kind of gotten where, everyone went back to school right away, and that really hit hard. And then you have a lot of people who I think just got kind of stir crazy and said, well, this is enough of this, we're going out. And you don't want to change your life too much, but you want to do the at least try to do the very basic things, which unfortunately I see a lot of times in the community. A lot of people aren't wearing masks when they go grocery shopping. Some businesses aren't wearing masks to benefit their customers, and I think people really just need to take a look. It's not just your health that you're protecting by wearing a mask. It's really more or less everyone else's, and I think that's something we have to address. And the sooner everyone gets on board, I think the sooner we can get back to some kind of normal. And we really need to cut this curve that we're in right now, because I know we're like one of the worst states at this present time, and it's not a good look.
Yeah, and we're filming this on the 7th of October, and there's been 2 new orders basically out from the governor, Evers, about this and to get it under control. So we'll have to see what happens between now and elections. Voting goes on no matter what.
Sure.
And there's in-person voting coming up at City Hall and other places, and then there's absentee going on right now, and then there's the regular in-person voting, not just at City Hall for those few days,
sure,
but on the 3rd, right? That's
yes, the election's on the 3rd. I believe the early voting that you're mentioning, I think, starts Tuesday, October 20th.
Yep. That's right. It's right, and that's coming up pretty quickly.
Right.
So hopefully doing these programs about the candidates, give some information about yourself and the other candidates. Nothing like getting into the poll and you say, who's this person?
Right.
That's not a good thing, and I'm sure it's happened to everyone. I'm not saying it's not, because it's really hard to understand what's going to be on your ballot if you don't do the research ahead of time.
Sure.
Because everybody's ballot, like you said in Marshfield, isn't the same.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the district
right.
too. So you could talk to your neighbor and they'll say, huh, what are you talking about? So-and-so's not on my ballot.
Yeah.
And it's because of that, which seems odd, but I suppose 10 years ago it wasn't like that.
Right.
And it's changed.
It makes it kind of hard to really campaign as well, because you're always checking, okay, so I gotta have this side of the road here, and we're just starting to do the lit drops, because we're still trying to make sure we're social distancing, trying to avoid the typical campaigning, but making sure you're dropping on the right side of the road, and
You're probably almost using GPS now.
Right.
You almost have to.
Right.
It is, yeah, it's very difficult. But some of those people don't know. So we're here to educate them with your help and other candidates' help. Well, let's turn to the last question, which is why should a voter elect you to replace Bob Culp in the 69th Assembly District?
Well, I think, the main reason I really got into this race is because I recognize that we have 5 referendums that have passed, and it passed overwhelmingly in the last few years with huge bipartisan support. It means both parties, everyone overwhelmingly agrees on them. And let's see if I can remember the 5 now. Raising minimum wage, expanding health care, legalizing medical marijuana. I'm drawing a blank on the other 2. Fair maps, which we talked about earlier. And yeah, I'm blanking on the 5th one now, but I'm sure it'll come back to me when I'm sitting at home thinking, oh. But, so anyways, 5 referendums have overwhelmingly passed, but not one of them has come to a vote in Madison. And so I think, it's important to have a representative that's going to vote and make sure that these votes get voted on, if not passed, votes that are overwhelmingly supported by our district.
All right. Well, good luck come November 3rd, and hopefully we can get results quickly and it doesn't get dragged out for weeks to months because of it's a presidential election. But I would think they'd have results on more the local level. I call it the local level, even though it's still a state.
Sure.
It covers quite a bit of territory. It's a lot of territory that you cover.
Right.
You'd be covering. So good luck again with moving forward here. And if you do win, we will definitely call you back over the next 2 years into the studio and see where you're going and really bring that back to the public to. Because it's for them. You're doing this on behalf of the public to really make sure that the laws and things are done right. So.
Well, thank you for having me today.
Yeah. Thanks, Brian, and I appreciate you guys, our viewers, watching us, and tune in to any of our other programs that we have regarding elections. We are doing the 7th congressional candidates. Tom Tiffany is going to be on board, as well as the other candidate, and I'm drawing a blank.
Tricia Zunker.
Tricia Zunker, sorry about that. And I just spoke to her yesterday. But yes, tune in for that throughout the weeks coming up to the election, and we'll have that. We haven't taped them yet, but next week is our time. As you know, it's October 7th. Thanks again for joining me. I'm Tom Laux for the City of Marshfield.